So this video has been a long time coming, but now seems as good a time as ever for you and I just to take a moment to sit down, breathe, and talk about why tier lists might be a little bit problematic. So before we start, allow me to say that the purpose of this video is not to dunk on content creators who do make tier lists. While I may have a little bit of history of perhaps commenting when content creators are maybe falling below standards, I mean it's literally the point of this channel, I do understand why tier lists get made and why they are so prevalent within our hobby space. Firstly, they're guaranteed lightning rods for content and for an algorithm that favours comments and clicks over debate and long-term retention. Secondly, they're really easy to make. They require very little in the sense of editing, time, or review and scripting. So for many content creators, it's a really good way of having consistent content that goes out and ensuring that you get those views to be as high as possible. Thirdly, they probably feed what the content creators want to do, which is to editorialize on things that they enjoy. So as I said, the purpose of this is not to comment on any of those content creators, even though I subjectively think they're quite a low-hanging fruit, and let's just get that caveat out so I'm not being dishonest. I'm not going to comment about them. I'm more focused on you, the viewer. So let's start with the tier list itself. When we click on one, what exactly are we looking for? On a very reductive level, it's a list of good and bad, and when we click on it, we're going to find out someone's opinion of probably who we don't know. So what exactly are we hoping to gain from looking at that? Well, we can probably hide behind the idea that we're looking to further our development of community comments about things or rationalize perspectives from another meta, but realistically, it's a validation exercise, isn't it? We're either going to find out whether someone considers what we enjoy to be good or bad, and based on that opinion, we're either going to feel good or bad about it in turn. Either things are going to be good or they're not. And let's be honest, the middle tiers are pretty much an afterthought. We're either going to feel good or bad based on if something is considered strong or trash compared to the opinions that we went in before we clicked on that video. So the question I ask is why are we seeking that validation? Why are we looking for an arbitrary list and viewpoint that is going to influence our decision making that we can't get from practical experience or from our own kind of intuitions and viewpoints that we would gain? Why are we seeking that elsewhere, and how is that going to be of value to us? And that's where we can examine the authorship of where these videos are coming from. A subjective discussion is important for moving things forward, but an arbitrary list coming from someone who is experiencing a completely different meta, power level, player base, or even experience base is going to be very far removed from anything that we have access to. Imagine, for example, Magnus Carlsen released a tier list of his top chess pieces based on his own experience. Now, while we could try and extrapolate that from his sage-like advice to our own playing level, the truth is we are not operating on the same level of him based on his opponents, his technique, and his fundamental knowledge of the history of the game. So it's going to be very, very hard for me to pull something that I can play to my game from his, quite frankly, god-tier level. And yes, I know there is value to a master talking through the intricacies of every single piece of a game based on fundamentally absurd amounts of experience. But let's be honest, most tier lists aren't doing that. Things that are sitting in the middle tier or the lower tier are probably there because the person making it doesn't have experience of it in their meta, or is simply not seeing the value that perhaps we see in other areas or different playstyles. The really obvious critique is what might be absolutely broken in one meta might be trash in another based on who's playing it, how they're applying it, and the decisions that are made time on time again as they go through rounds, whether it's competitive or casual. So the question has to again become, what are we hoping to gain from this content, and how are we going to apply it to ourselves other than what is an arbitrary list? Finally, and truthfully the actual purpose of this video, we have to look at the community impact that tier lists have and the narratives that they create. The constant, incessant ranking effectively puts new and current releases into two brackets, things that are broken and things that are trash, which creates a very, very narrow mindset within the wider discussions in the community and limits the interactions that new players can have to explore their own avenues. I'm sure we've all been part of communities where there has been wailing at a new release that is either trash or broken before it's even seen the table. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy too. If we constantly say that X is better than Y, then everyone is going to play X and they're going to find more success with it. And the limitations of people playing Y and having less experience is going to continue to make it look like it's a weaker option. And as I mentioned, those perceived power levels are absolute poison to new players coming into the hobby space because of course they're going to seek out a tier list before they spend with their wallets. They're going to want to see what the community's perception of power levels are so they don't misstep or misinvest. And what we're actually doing there is robbing ourselves of new perspectives and new notions that could shake up that established order that has become that fixed mindset. I know it seems like I'm casting the net particularly wide with this point, but the viewing figures do not lie. Enough people will be interacting with this content that we have to assume that they're going to then take that and incorporate it into their own metas and their own play, which is going to affect everyone else that's around them. So yeah, those are my thoughts, and it's safe to say that I'm not a fan, and I really struggle to understand what people are getting out of these tier lists apart from some background noise and arbitrary judgments. However, I'm more than open to hear what your perspectives are in the comments below, and hope to see people explaining exactly why these lists are so prevalent within our hobby space. At the very least, I hope I've inspired a little bit of reflective thought on your part, and perhaps we'll be able to come to a more reasoned discussion as things move on and progress. Regardless, it's pretty clear that tier lists are here to stay and are going to become a more prevalent part of our hobby, but we must always remember there are alternatives that could potentially seek more value for us in the long term. Things like podcasts, video report content, or even just long-form analysis via blogs or posts will allow us to gain a deeper insight into people's thinking that don't necessarily rely on ending with a ranking judgment that will make us feel either validated or critiqued. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and taken it in the good spirit in which it's intended. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Well, a massive thank you for watching that video, guys. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you want to find some more, they should be over here. And if you want to support the channel and the content that we create here, there's links to our Patreon and merchandise in the description below. Take care.